Listen, man, come on in the room. Let's chit chat. Let's talk. It's about that time, guys. Let's do it. Do me a favor. I want you to share this video with as many people as possible. We got a lot to talk about. I'm glad to be back, back for another edition of Relationship University. And I need to see as many people on tonight's live as possible. So do me a favor, share this video. Let somebody know, listen, that Dr. G. Davis is in the building. It's getting ready to go down. So do me a favor, share this video now. When you come in, I want to see some hearts, and we're getting ready to get started, guys. We're getting ready to get started. I see Javon's on, Sherry's on, Dion's on, Sasha is on. Guys, go ahead and share this video real quick. I'm going to get everybody a few minutes to log in, but we're getting ready to get started. I trust that you had a great day today, and you guys are ready to learn tonight. So listen, let me go ahead and put this disclaimer out there. I only want to talk to mature people tonight because this subject is very, very touching, and not everybody's willing to deal with the truth. And so we're going to expose truth tonight. So I need you to, if you're going to join us tonight, I know we're not going to have a lot of listeners and viewers on tonight, but it's going to be okay. But I want to see you get healed. I want to see you get free tonight. So do me a favor, share this video with some friends, some aunties, some uncles, some aunties, cousins. Listen, I want you to share this video with as many people as possible. We have a lot to talk about tonight, guys, in a short period of time to get there. So I'm going to give you guys a few more minutes, and then we're getting ready to get started. So what I want you to do while we're waiting for more people to join, do me a favor, get to a quiet area. You're going to need something to write with. You're going to need something to write on, as we do every Relationship University class, guys. It's not a lot of riff-raff, guys. We do some in-depth teaching, some in-depth talking, because, listen, you need to be in the know as it relates to relationships, as it relates to dating, and as it relates to marriage. You need to be absolutely in the know. I keep telling you, you don't need to be in the dark regarding anything in life. All right, so you want to be in the know. So do me a favor, grab a piece of paper, get to a quiet area. You got kids in the room, I want you to get to a quiet area because we have a lot to talk about. All right, so share this video as I begin to talk, but go ahead and share this video, guys. I want to know what city you're viewing this from, and I want to see where you guys are watching this from tonight as we get ready to get started. All right, I'm excited because, listen, in another 3 weeks, guys, we'll be back on the road again, and we're hitting the road tough all year long starting next month. So we'll be gone all year long, all the way up until December. And so if I haven't came to your city, I promise you I am on my way. We're headed to Atlanta. We're headed to Jacksonville, Florida. We are headed to Houston, Texas. We're headed to Delaware soon, real soon, within a month or so. We're headed to Greensboro, North Carolina. We're headed to Montgomery, Alabama, as well as Milry, Alabama. Seattle's in the works, and LA is in the works. So we're on our way to you guys. So listen, I need to know what city you're viewing this from because I am headed your way. All right, so let's get started, guys. Hopefully we can get through this tonight. So this is a part 2. So let me go ahead and put that out there. This is the part 2. So I want you to listen to tonight's first session, and then next week we'll finish up this conversation. So for some of you guys who are just joining us for the first time, I do 2 shows. I do It's Complicated, which is a little comical, and then I do Relationship University, where we physically take our time, seriously take our time, and teach so that you can get it, you'll understand it, you'll be able to capture it. All right. And so Relationship University, guys, again, is really for mature individuals who really want to get this thing as relates to relationships, dating, and marriage. There's a lot of things that's happening, and again, you must be in the know. The Bible talks about that people perish for lack of knowledge. It's not just talking about scripture and spiritual things, but there's a lack of knowledge as it relates to dating, as it relates to marriage, and as it relates to relationship. And so you need to be in the know as it relates to all of these subjects. All right. So tonight, again, guys, welcome to Relationship University. I'm your host, Dr. G. Davis. And tonight we're going to talk about mixed signals. We're going to talk about mixed signals. All right. We're going to be talking about childhood trauma. And we're going to be talking about dating, childhood trauma and dating. So again, go ahead and get to a quiet area, grab something to write with, and let's begin tonight's live class. All right. So first thing I want to tell you tonight is this. Here we go. First thing I want you to write down is this. 85% of the people that you date and that you talk to, here we go, they all have trust issues. Let me just go ahead and put that out there. 85% of the people that you come in contact with, the people that you've dated, the people that you've married, most of them, if they were here tonight and they raised their hand, most of them would say, listen, Dr. G, I got some severe trust issues, right? And so the reality is this, there's 100% now of the people that you date and talk to that will brag about being trustworthy. Everybody said they trustworthy. Everybody said they can be trusted. Everybody said they won't do this, they won't do that. Everyone wants to claim that they're this best friend and this, such a good friend, such a good sister, a good brother. Listen, all of that's great, but almost 85% of y'all all have trust issues, right? This is one of the major concerns that I talk to women is I just can't get over this trust issue. I have a trust issue with every man that I come in contact with. And a lot of this, guys, has to deal with the things that we have experienced from the beginning. I'm going to use this word a lot, so I need you to follow close. If you pay attention to all of the things that you've experienced, all of the people that you've dated, all the people that you've married, what were the things that were significant from the beginning that you just ignored, that you didn't want to pay attention to? And so those things, guys, are everything in our adulthood. This issue with trust and mistrust is a problem that unfortunately is not going to go away because people are human and people make mistakes. And the reality is how you deal with this now is going to make, I'm telling you, it's going to make a world of difference on who you choose to date, who you choose to marry, who you choose to entertain, and who you choose to attract. All right. So 85% of you guys probably have trust issues. If I was a gambling man, I would say about 85% of y'all have trust issue. But everybody, 100% of you guys will all say that you guys are trustworthy. All right. One of the things I want you to hear real quick is this. You cannot trust loyalty until you've been tested, proved, and tried. You cannot trust loyalty until it has been proven, tested, and tried. And so you got to understand tonight as we talk about the subject that, again, trust is not given. Trust has to be earned over a period of time. It's just not given on day one. Just because you took me out to eat and we went to IHOP and we went to Fridays doesn't mean that you automatically get my trust. It has to be earned. And so what you have to understand tonight is that what you see in yourself determines your level of friendship. I want you to write that down. What you see in yourself determines your level of friendship. What you see in yourself determines the level of and quality of man that you would date or quality of woman that you date. What you see in yourself determines the level and quality of woman that you would marry or that you will marry as a man. All right. So how do you see yourself is going to make a huge difference, guys, in moving forward. All right. Now, the reality is that when you have trust issues, you create this barrier that makes it hard to relate, connect, and receive. I'm going to say that again. When you have trust issues, you create this barrier that makes it hard to relate, to connect, and to receive. Everything that you ever need, guys, unfortunately, will always be given by and through a man. And I know some of you guys are already frustrated. I can't trust this man. I can't trust. Listen, everything that you need, unfortunately, is going to be given through a man. And I know some of you guys who are in the church, Vicky Winers had a song that says, as long as I had King Jesus, I don't need nobody else. Listen, that's a lie. and the devil's mama has halitosis. Listen, that is not the truth. Don't believe the hype and don't be deceived, because you're going to need more than just God. Trust me when I tell you. If you're a single person, hear what I'm saying. You are going to need more than just God. Whatever you need is going to come and be packaged through a man, which means that at some point, you're going to have to learn how to trust. One of the things I want to tell you tonight is that the fact that you're still here and you didn't die over your last situation, your last ex, tells me that you can be trusted. Right? So it also tells me that the lack of trust did not kill you in your relationship. And now I know it's painful, it was devastating, and it hurt, but ultimately it did not physically kill you in that situation. So the next person that you're going to be in a relationship, you got to develop trust. All right. And you've got to develop this from the beginning. All right. So this issue of trust, we got to be careful, because some of us have been in relationships with people who have been proven not to be trusted. It's going to be a long night. Listen, you've been in relationships with people who have not proven that they can be trusted. Remember what I told you, that trust has to be earned. It's never given. It has to be earned. And so it's only earned over a period of time. And this is why I teach you guys that there's 5 steps to relationship. The first step has to be friendship, right? The second step has to be courting. The third step has to be dating. The fourth step is engagement. And then last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, we have marriage. This is why on the first step, which is friendship, we've got to figure out, before we start calling each other baes and boos and boyfriends and girlfriend, can you actually be trusted? Because my problem with some of y'all is that you're spending too much time with people who have not been proven that they can be trusted. You've married people just because y'all went out to eat and y'all quote unquote compatible. You made it seem like that's all you needed, but you didn't have a period of time, and there was not history created enough so that you can say, listen, this man been with me from day one. This woman been rocking with me from day one. I can trust this individual. I can trust him with finances. I can trust him with my most deep secrets and don't have to worry about it getting out into the public. My problem with you guys is that some of you guys have spent too much time entertaining people that have not been proven to be trusted. Remember what I said. Trust has to be earned. It cannot just be freely given. All right. So as we talk about this issue of trust, most of the things, guys, that we're dealing with in our adulthood is a result of some type of mistrust. It's also the reason why some of us have experienced some type of trauma because of mistrust. All right. We're going to get into this here a little deeper in a few minutes. So one of the things I want to tell you tonight is that as we talk about mixed signals, and again, I'm going to do a part 2 on this next week, but as we talk about mixed signals, and I want you to hear what I'm saying, because this is going to be the foundation on where we're going to go over the next 2 weeks. All right. As we talk about mixed signals, you need to understand real clear that there are signals and mixed signals everywhere. They're all around us, right? They're in the church. I said they're in the church, and this is why I'm so big with people and pastors and leaders and people who go to church in the church, because we need to tell the whole story of why we do relationships, right? We don't need to just always preach about don't fornicate, don't do this. Let's talk about, after we stop fornicating, what are we supposed to do, right? You made me get married. Now I'm married and I'm not qualified. I don't have the learning that I need to be married. And now what? There's nothing else that the church talks about after you get married. And so there are always mixed signals, even in the church. There's mixed signals in corporate America. You got people who are trying to figure out, is it necessary for me to sleep my way up this corporate ladder. Is that what we do? We just sleep with random people to get to another level in corporate America. Well, if that's what going to the next level is about, then I'm not with that. So there's mixed signals even in corporate America. There's mixed signals in relationships. And we're going to talk about this next week, where we got people who are being dragged from month to month, and you don't want to be with this person, but you don't want to tell this person because you're afraid that they're going to leave. And so you're trying to juggle multiple people at one time because you don't really know what you want. And so you're sending these mixed signals, and somebody in the process is going to get hurt. And so there's mixed signals, guys. Listen, all around us. They're everywhere. There's mixed signals in our upbringing. And this is where I want to focus our attention tonight. Mixed signals as it relates to your childhood. All right? Mixed signals as it relates to your childhood. The things, guys, listen to me. The things that you and I have experienced and how we've dated people and why we've married people is a direct result to your childhood. It's going to be a long night. I said it's a direct result to what you've learned and what you picked up in your childhood. Listen, some of the things that you've experienced are things that were self-inflicted. And then there were some things that you picked up that was blood or family afflicted. Mommy and daddy had a crazy relationship growing up. All I remember was them fighting and cussing and arguing. And so when you got older, you began to think that this type of relationship was what you're supposed to be a part of, because listen, that's all I know. And as kids, we tend to absorb everything. We're like a sponge. We tend to absorb everything. And so even if it's dysfunctional, even in our adulthood, we'll take that into our adulthood and think that it is functional. And so we got to be careful, guys, that we are not being misled as it relates to what happened to us. And this is why I keep telling you that you have to take your time in relationships. This is why the first step, guys, has to be friendship, because I need to know what type of person I'm coming into a relationship with. Because it may be somebody who is dealing with serious childhood trauma. Now, there's some things that, we can kind of tolerate, but then there's some other things that just like, wait a minute, hold up, time out. I didn't sign up for this. I don't want this. So as it relates to where you are now, let's go back to the beginning. And the first question I want to know tonight is, what was your idea of relationships growing up? I want you to think about that. What was your idea about marriage growing up, right? How was mom and dad's relationship? And then most importantly, how has mom and dad's relationship then affected you today? And I need you to be honest. I need you to have this conversation with me, and I need you to be honest. Let's just think about this for a moment. The things that we seen growing up, right? The arguing. And not everybody came from, this dysfunctional family, but there were some things that you seen growing up. And maybe it wasn't in mom and dad's house, but maybe it was in grandma and grandpa's house. But something happened to you in your childhood and your adolescence that has shaped the type of adult that you are today. I'm going to say that again. Something happened in your adolescence, in your childhood, that has shaped and has packaged you to be the type of adult that you are today. And so let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning, guys, of why we do what we do. All right. So there's mixed signals everywhere we look. And again, most of them, if you'll be honest tonight, we'll start from our family dynamic. We had a lot of things. In our family that wasn't right. I'm gonna tell you straight up. My dad was very, very abusive. Very, very abusive. He was very, very militant. He was in the army, and he was anal. I'm talking about just raw. He didn't care what came out of his mouth. He loved to control. He loved to dictate. He loved to manipulate. That was his MO from the time he woke up to the time he went to bed. I've never seen my dad happy. From the time he got up, he was fussing, to the time he went to bed, he was fussing, right? He was abusive to my mother, fighting, beating her, hitting her, socking her, slapping her. And this is the type of stuff that I had to pay close attention to. It was things that did not make sense to me. And in those days, and some of your parents are like this too, it was really old school. Dad did the working, and it was a must that dinner was ready when time dad got home. It was a must that the bathtub water was ran for dad when he got home. And this was the expectation, at least Monday through Friday. This was the expectation. And so one of the questions that I had with my dad as I got older now, I had to ask him, I said, well, listen, because my mom worked too. So it wasn't just my dad working. But one of the questions I asked him, I said, well, it doesn't seem like there's this balance between, giving and serving. It don't seem like it's this healthy balance. And I said to him, I said, how come I've never seen you cook for mom? How come I've never seen you run mom's bath water? How come but it always was the opposite. You always had to have your bath water ran. You always had, and I know you the man of the house, and I get that, but she's the queen of the house. And so as I grew up, I had a decision I had to make. One thing I did know, even though there was dysfunctionalism that was present, one thing that I did realize was that this wasn't right. Even though I had no idea how adults interact and how relationships should really be and how marriage should really be, the one thing I did know is that what I was seeing, it couldn't be right? It couldn't be, this type of behavior just couldn't be acceptable in most houses that I knew. I had a hard time believing that this was what marriage was supposed to be like. It didn't make sense to me. And so I had a decision, guys, that I had to make, even as a child. And one of the things I said to myself, I said, listen, if I ever get married, when I do get married, I would not treat my wife like my dad treated my mom, because my mom suffered. And she dealt with stress, and she dealt with frustration. She was in the church. She was a missionary in the Church of God in Christ. And so, preaching machine, teaching machine. And I miss her dearly. But she had all of this going for herself. And in those days, most couples, even if they were going through, you never heard about it. This stuff was hush hush. Nobody knew but the immediate family. And the immediate family better not tell nobody, because it's going down. But this stuff, guys, they kept under the rug and nobody talked about it. And so she began to deal with this stuff, guys, internally, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And it got so bad, guys, that she developed breast cancer, right? And the chemo was just so strong, she couldn't deal with this. She's trying to maintain a family. She's trying to maintain her business. And it was just too much. She's trying to keep this church face on like everything is okay. And so she's shouting in church, but yelling and screaming because her husband is literally beating her brains out over something stupid. And so one of the things that I realized, guys, is that as a child, I could not allow this trauma to affect how I was going to live my adult life. And so even to this day, this is why I'm an advocate for women. And I know I got some brothers on here, and I got some men who just hate me. And they like, well, why are you always talking to the ladies? Because I have a heart for women because of what my mother experienced. And Queena, she knows very well. She used to be a part of my mom and dad's daycare. And for years, our house was literally a landscape for our community. And so everybody knew where G lives. Everybody knew where I lived, because my dad thought it was smart to, we had these huge rocks in front of our house. And so he thought it was smart to just go ahead and paint these rocks different colors, because we had a daycare at our house, and then we had a daycare up the street that it used to be a 7-Eleven. We renovated it and made it a daycare center. And so everybody knew where I lived because of these colored rocks. And so Queen know I used to get teased, and this is where you live. And it was just a terrible experience, But my point is that I had a decision I had to make. And one of the things that I knew is that this could not be right. And I'm talking to individuals who have been in relationships that something is not right. If this is love, this can't be right. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem right. And if this is all that you have to offer, I have a problem with this. And so let's talk about childhood trauma for a few minutes, guys. I want to visit this. And again, I'm talking to mature people who want to heal tonight, because this issue of childhood trauma is one of the things that we choose not to talk about. And I know some of y'all over the age of 30, some of y'all over the age of 40, and some of you guys are even over the age of 50, and you have still not been able to kind of cope with what happened. And so we need to do that tonight, all right? So let's talk about what is childhood trauma, all right? Childhood trauma can be caused by any situation perceived by a child as a frightening or overwhelming, during which the child feels scared or helpless, all right? This situation is often just one-time events, such as an injury, a parent breakup, molestation, rape, bullying, or even death, right? But something happened in the childhood that has affected the reason why you started doing what you did in your adulthood, all right? So that's the definition of childhood drama. Now, it can also have long-term effects, and this is why I'm telling you, and this is why we need to do the show tonight, because it can have long-term effect the longer you choose not to deal with what happened to you in your childhood. And what can happen is you can start suffering physically, as my mother did. She developed lumps in her breasts, right? She thought that, if I just prayed, if I anointed, if I just, read my word, that this lump, my condition was going to disappear. And the reality is that I believe that she was just so religious to where she just waited, and the doctors wasn't able to get it in time, right? So again, the doctors are in the earth, guys, for a reason. And I know some of y'all in the church and don't believe in medicine. Don't listen. Doctors are in the earth. Therapists and psychologists, guys, are in the earth for a reason. And it's not just for because. And one of the things we have a problem with as black folks is going to the doctors. You need to go to the doctor, right? You need to go to the doctor. And so she didn't go to the doctor. She just was just being spiritual. I'll pray about it. I'll fast. I'll shut in. And she began to develop lumps in her breasts. By that time, the cancer, guys, began to spread, right? And then she was forced to go on chemo. Well, the chemo that was supposed to help was doing more damage than it was helping. And the chemo was too strong. And in 92, my mother passed. And so when you choose not to deal with this trauma, right, it can have long-term effects, such as physical illnesses, such as sexual illnesses, verbal abuse, neglect, exposure to domestic violence, and chronic illness. This is why we've got to deal with it. This is why we can't be silent anymore, guys, as it relates to the things that we've been through. We've got to talk about what happened to us from the beginning, from our childhood, from elementary school, all the way up to high school and to college. The things that you've experienced in your adulthood, the reason why you attract what you attract, is not just, a coincidence. It's something that happened to you in your past that we need to deal with. Again, some of these things were self-inflicted as an adult, right? But excuse me, but some things were family inflicted or blood inflicted. As we grew up, we just kind of picked up this habit because this is the things that we seen on a day-to-day basis. All right. So Again, let me explain the 5 steps to relationship, and this is why you got to ask lots and lots of questions. Again, the first step, guys, always. I know we like to go to Fridays and we like to Netflix and chill, but before we do all of that, we need to develop a solid friendship. That's number 1. All right. The second step, guys, has to be courting. The third step is dating. Somebody said, well, what's the difference between courting and dating? Well, I'm glad you asked. Courting is what we call the discovery stage, right? Before you, if you go to jail, if it was a misdemeanor, felony, or whatever, over a period of time, what happens is they form what is called a discovery. And on the discovery, it tells them exactly what your criminal history is, right? From the age of 18 all the way to your present age. It tells the police, the judge, the lawyers, whoever wants to see it, exactly what your experience is, what you've done and what you did not do. All right. So what's the difference between courting and dating? Well, in courting, I figure out what is on your discovery, your relationship discovery. I figure out how many times you've been married. I figure out how many times you really been pregnant. I find out how many kids you really got. I find out how many times have you really been married. I will find out all of this stuff, guys, in the courting stage. Before we start claiming each other as boyfriend and girlfriends and all that stuff, I need to figure out, who am I talking to? I know we spending hours and hours on the phone, but who am I really talking to? Who is the essence of who? I could be talking to a molester. I could be talking to a mofo. Who am I really talking to? And so the courting stage help you to determine whether or not you can deal with this person. So that's the difference between courting and dating. Now when we start dating, now we're officially together, which makes us monogamous, right? I'm not talking to you, and you. I'm just talking to one person. And over a period of time, guys, over these stages, we get to see where we are, and we see the levels of maturity on each stage. So you have friendship, you have courting, you have dating, you have engagement, and then last but not least, we should be married. All right. Those should be the 5 steps to relationships. All right. Now, let's deal with this. And here's why you need to deal with childhood trauma before dating and after dating. All right. Because if you don't, I want you to write this down. If you don't deal with it, and some of you guys are already dating, some of you guys are not dating, some of you guys are married, some of you guys are not married, whatever status you are at, this is something that you need to pay close attention to. All right. And one of the things, the reason why you need to deal with this, with your childhood trauma, guys, is because it causes depression. I'll take a drink on that. It causes depression. It causes anxiety. It causes you to have pent up anger and aggression. You think this guy's just mad. He always want to fight. Well, where did that fighting spirit come from? Why is he always angry all the time? How come we can't have a sensible conversation without there turning into an argument? Well, there's a reason for that. There's a reason. There's a reason why this is happening. And it has to do with the childhood. If you don't deal with it, guys, it causes confusion, shock, and denial. Some of us know as an adult that you know when you're wrong, but because you have this trauma, it has affected you, and you don't acknowledge what you've caused. If you don't deal with it, it also causes guilt, or it causes shame to come over you, right? Guilt and shame. All right. Now, if you choose not to deal with your depression, your anxiety, your pent-up aggression, your anger, if you choose not to deal with this disassociation, you isolate yourself. You don't want to be with nobody. I don't want to date. I'm not ready for it. Well, why aren't you ready to date? Let's talk about that. Why aren't you ready to date? I don't want to be with nobody. I just want to be by myself, and I don't want to relate. Well, why don't you want a relationship right now? Not that there's nothing wrong with that, but tell me, why don't you want a relationship? Is it because you've been hurt? Is it because you can't trust people? Well, what's the reason? Because to every action, guys, there is a reaction. All right? So there's a reason why we do what we do. We just don't do things just because. And if anybody tells you that, they're lying, because to every reaction there's an action. Why is it that you don't want to date? What happened to you? How come you haven't experienced love before? How come you can't be committed? How come you can't be loyal? What happened to you? And again, most of these answers, guys, well, if you go back, it's found in the beginning. Something happened, something determined your outlook on relationships. And I know we don't want to admit it. I get it. We don't want to admit it. We don't want to fess up to it. But I promise you, if you deal with this trauma, and I know it's a painful thing, but even in your adulthood, you can't continue to play the victim. You can't continue to play and be guilty over something that was not even under your control. Right? And so if you choose not to deal with your anger, your anxiety, your disassociation, your guilt, your shame, eventually you'll start developing a couple of things. Even in your adulthood, you start developing sleep problems. You're not sleeping regularly. You're not eating regularly. Right? You start experiencing fatigue and lack of energy. You start having aches and pains. You start having muscle tension, a racing heartbeat. You start having a lack of focus and concentration. And that's just not because, guys, that you got a lot on you. No, it's a reason why you have a lot on you. And I promise you, it has something to do with how you were raised, what you listened to growing up as a child. Because the problem is, what I'm learning is, some of you guys have to grow up quick. You had to become the mother. You have to become the father to the rest of your siblings. And it's a result of something lacking in that household. All right. So let's talk about this, guys. So there's 6 ways that childhood trauma affects your adult relationships. There's 6 ways that childhood trauma affects your marriage or your dating relationship. All right. So let's talk about that. All right. Number 1, there is memory loss. I want you to write that down. Number 1, there's memory loss, and I'm almost done. There's memory loss. Dr. G, what do you mean there's memory loss? How is that affecting my adulthood? Well, I'm glad you asked. There's a memory loss. So you start saying things like, I really never had a childhood. I can't really remember growing up much other than the fighting, the drama, the alcohol, the abuse. So there's a memory loss. You don't even remember experiencing a childhood. That's how traumatic it's been. And here's the bigger thing. You haven't even told anybody. You've kept this inside of you for long periods of time. Some of you guys even seen where one of your parents were being abused. And as a child, not being able to help can be traumatizing. And so there's a memory loss of not experiencing being a child. So one of the things, as I had kids, I got a boy and a girl. And one of the things that I realized with my babies was I didn't want them to have to grow up quick, right? I wanted them to experience what a child is. Because one thing, listen, one thing about it is kids need to be kids. Kids should ought to be in a place where they can be a child, right? But there comes a time where you can't always be a child. And this is the reason why we got to deal with this tonight, because I'm talking to a lot of adults who still think that they're kids. They act like kids. They talk like kids. Everything still resemble childhood behaviors. And so let me give you this announcement. Listen, the days of being a Toys R Us kid is over. You can't be a Toys R Us kid and you 40-some years old and you 50-some years old. At some point, you got to stop playing with toys, and it's time to grow up. And so one of the things I didn't want to do with my kids was have them grow up too fast and to expose them to things that they shouldn't have had to experience. I didn't want that. I didn't want that. After my marriage, my son, I didn't want my son to have to get to know multiple women. Dad, who's this? Dad, who's that? Dad, that's not mom. No, baby, that's not mom. And so I never wanted him to have to question what I do. Now, listen. As a child, you should never question what your parents are doing. But some of this stuff, guys, somebody needs to say something. I can't cuss, but something needs to be said. Because some of the stuff that we're doing as an adult, guys, is not cool. And what we don't realize is that it's not only have an effect on us as an adult, but it has an effect on our kids. And so one of the things I tell women and one of the things I tell men, if the person that you're dating does not represent what you want your daughter to be or what you want your son to be, then why are we dating? Women, if this man doesn't represent what you want your son to be as a man, that's the wrong dude. And so number one is memory loss. And you start saying things that I never had a childhood. And these are things, guys, that you'll never be able to get back. You can't ever go back to being a child and riding a little tricycle and you those are memories that you can't get back. Right? And so even in our adulthood, we got people who are still trying to be kids. That movie with Tyrese is a real movie. Baby Boy is a real story. We got boys who are still trying, we got men still trying to be boys. And there's a reason why boys like Tyrese and in the movie gravitate to women who have mother instincts, that can cook, that can clean, that can take care of responsibilities, that can pay bills. You know why? Because this is a man that is still living like a child. And maybe it's because mama wasn't there. Or maybe it was because mama wasn't there enough. And so this man, this grown man, is now still gravitating to older women. Or maybe it's the reverse. Maybe you're a female that is still gravitating to sugar daddies and older men. You have a thing for older. Young men ain't never really been your thing. You kind of gravitate to older men. That might be a reason. The reason for that could be maybe daddy wasn't there. And so you've always looked for this father figure. Or maybe daddy was there. And daddy was your rock. And daddy was your everything. And so now every man that you date has to resemble your daddy. If he don't take care of me like my dad, he ain't the one. Well, you need to marry your daddy. You need to go and date your daddy, because nobody can take the place of daddy. It ain't gonna happen. Nobody can take the place of mama. There will only be one mama. There will only be one. I don't care how many times you get married. There will only be one mama. There might be many stepdads and many stepmothers, but there will only be one mama, one daddy. And so the problem is that the reasons why you gravitate to older people, men and women, can be a direct result of what happened to you in your childhood. Maybe mama wasn't there. Maybe daddy wasn't there. And this is the reason why you have this issue. So memory loss. I don't remember my dad being active. And so dad was there. And then others of you guys will say dad was there, but he wasn't there physically. He was there financially. Well, that's not good enough as a child, because there is no relationship. There's no connection. All I know is, whatever I needed something, dad was there. And so when you grow up, ladies, as an adult, now you're looking for a man who only can provide. But there's no real connection. And so he can be He can be away from the house for hours and days at a time, just as long as he paying the bill, keeping the lights on, and making sure that food is in the refrigerator. We good. We in a relationship. We married. We straight. But that's not what marriage is supposed to be like. That's not what dating is supposed to be like. So number one is memory loss. Number two is this. It's missing parts. I want you to write that down. Missing parts. Dr. G, what do you mean? Missing parts. Again, we're talking about the 6 ways that childhood trauma affects your adulthood. All right. Number two is missing parts. You'll start saying things like, I've always felt like something was missing. We're talking about our childhood. I always felt like, something was missing, but I don't know what it is. Or you start saying, I was forced to grow up because, and then you fill in the blank. Maybe my mom wasn't there. Maybe mom was on drugs. And you had to grow up. You had to look after your sisters or your brothers. You had to grow up. So you had missing parts in your childhood. Again, because of what happened. The dynamic between mom and dad. Maybe dad wasn't in the picture. Maybe mom wasn't in the picture. Maybe there was drugs involved. Maybe there was alcohol involved that caused them not to be there and give you the type of childhood that you needed growing up. We've got to deal with this now because the way we interact with people now in our adulthood is a direct result from things that we did not learn in our childhood. Again, this is a touchy subject, and I know we ain't gonna get a lot of viewers tonight, but you need to hear this. You need to hear this because this is going to teach you how to deal with people who are having serious moments with childhood trauma. So number two is missing parts. Number three is this, guys. Attraction to destructive relationships. Attraction to destructive relationships. All right? So you start saying things like, I'm the kind of person that always want to date people who are bad for me. I like bad boys. I like women who are a little got a mouth on them, a little rough around the edge. I like that. I like the crazies. I like that. That turns me on. Why does crazy? Let's think about this. Why does crazy turn you on? Why does somebody who is just loud and obnoxious just do something for you? Let's think about this. Why is this type of behavior? Why is this type of behavior okay? And so you start saying things like, I'm attracted to project men and project women. I'm not talking about people who live in projects, but I'm talking to people who date projects, people who marry projects. I've been saying it last year, and I'll say it again all this year. The next person that comes into your life has to come fully assembled. You don't need to date or marry any more IKEA parts. You don't need to date IKEA furniture and IKEA quality. If you bought furniture from IKEA at any point, that is subject not to last long. It's just not going. It just ain't gonna last. It's cheap, it's affordable, but the quality, guys, does not last. What am I saying? You keep attracting projects. They look good on the outside, but the quality of who they are doesn't last. And the reason why it doesn't last is because it's something that happened to them in the beginning. Maybe mama spoiled that boy, spoiled that man, rotten. And so now he thinks that every woman that he dates is supposed to spoil him, supposed to wash his clothes, supposed to cook for him, while he sits back, play PlayStation all day, and then enjoy all the benefits. Listen, them days is over with. That's what you should have experienced as a child. And so as an adult, you don't want to pay bills because you want to be a child still. This is a direct result of how you were living as a child. So we got grown adults that don't want to pay bills. You know why? Because as kids, we didn't have to pay no bills. We just ate with mama bought, ate with daddy bought. We needed clothes and shoes. We just tell mom, dad, listen, I need a pair of shoes, I need a pair of chucks. I need you to make it happen. And as an adult, you took that same spirit, that same attitude, and you brought it into your relationship, and now you put an expectation on the person that you've dated based off of what happened to you growing up as a child. And the reality is there should be a separation from your life as a child and your life as an adult. All right? So you've been attracted to destructive relationships. Why do you only attract people who are projects? I want you to think about why are you only attracted to people who have become a project, who become a headache to you, who always bring drama into your life, people who have a tendency in the history of not being loyal, cheaters and dogs and players. Why are you attracted to those types of people? Right? And these are the questions that we need to ask. Maybe daddy was a Rolling Stone. I don't know. But something, guys, happened. So number 3 is attraction to destructive relationships. We got to deal with it, and we got to deal with it from the root. Number 4, guys, and I got to go, is you avoid relationships. You avoid relationships. And so you'll say stuff like, I'm better alone. I'll be by myself. I don't want to date. I'm not ready to date. I'm not ready to get married. I don't want to get married. But you want to lay, you just want to lay and play though. And then you say stuff like, I enjoy my isolation. I enjoy being alone. But there's a reason why you enjoy being alone. And it could be the fact that there was so much drama in your life as a child growing up that maybe, and I've heard stories of this, that dad and mom was fighting so bad that all you wanted to do was run into your room, throw a blanket over your head, and try to block out the noise. And what happened is, guys, because the trauma is so bad and so deep and so deeply rooted, we take that same attitude in relationships. And we isolate ourselves. I don't want to be with anybody. And we close ourselves off to the world. And what happens is you become depressed, you become stressed out, and some of you guys, this depression allows you and causes you to gain weight. You don't gain weight. You know, some of you are having physical issues, and now you've developed tumors inside of you. You develop back pain and migraines and all of this, guys. It's not because you met the wrong dude. It's why you met the wrong dude. Because you were attracted to a certain type of person. And so number 4 is you avoid relationships. And not just in a boyfriend and girlfriend context, but you avoid relationships with people. I know so many women who do not have women friends to this day. They don't have women friends. I know men who do not have men friends. There's a reason. Listen to me. There's a reason why you don't have friends. Why do you avoid relationships? I don't need nobody. I'm good. I'm good by myself. I'm just gonna raise my kids, and I'm good. Listen, that's the wrong. Listen. There's a reason why you said that. There's a reason why you've been living that way. And again, it has something to do with what happened to you in your past. All right? I'm scared of people who make themselves an island. Those types of people scared me. You know, we always were told in school, you know, you got to be careful for them quiet ones. Because there's always some quiet ones that be doing dirt. Watch them quiet people. And this is why we didn't mess with nerds at school, because those are the ones that have the ability to come back and punish everybody and shoot people. And in Florida, we're experiencing that right now, where somebody was severely dealing with a mental illness. And in fact, he was supposed to go get treatment this week, they said. He was actually supposed to go and sit down with a doctor this week, was when he was scheduled to go and meet this guy to get help. But the problem is he never made it to the doctor, and because of what has happened to him in his childhood, his mother died, his father died, wasn't in the picture. So I don't know if he did all of this killing, guys, because of abandonment issues, but there have been a history of mental health and mental illness. All right. And this is why I tell you guys, this is why The dating game and the marriage game has changed. It's not because you're getting older. It's not that. It's people that we're talking to on a day-to-day basis, guys, are dealing with mental illnesses. You know why they're dealing with mental illnesses? They're dealing with mental illnesses because there's something that happened to them in their past. That's why listen, and you can't cook enough, sis. You can't sex him enough to make him change. That's a problem. And mental illness, guys, hear me, is not just a condition, but it's a spirit that only Jesus can treat, only God can treat. And so the doctors will prescribe medicine to kind of suppress it, but to get rid of it. Most people who have mental illnesses have it for the rest of their life. And until God heals them completely, where there is no trace, there's no sign, they will continue to deal with these issues where they're spazzing out all of a sudden. And again, if you don't know what you're dealing with, if you're not taking your time to deal with these issues and to kind of figure out what you're dealing with, something bad could happen. And I'm not wishing bad on anybody, but when you don't know what's going on, what happened to us in Florida, what happened to you in your relationship. And these people should have been screening this young man, making sure that he had the help and the support that he needed. Just today in Florida, in South Florida again, there's a teenager, 15 years old, shoots himself at school. All over the news. I don't know what happened. Don't know what he was dealing with as a child. But guys, I'm telling you, when we refuse not to deal with these issues, things manifest. And some of us have been good about hiding those things. Some of us have been good by hiding it behind the church, behind being religious. And the problem is still there. And so I know you think it's gone. I know, but it's still there. And until you deal with it and allow God to heal you, you're going to still be dealing with these issues. Last but not least, guys, I got two more. Number 5 is you avoid you. You avoid you. Dr. G, what do you mean? You avoid you. You start saying things like, I don't like to think about myself like this. It only makes me feel bad. You start saying stuff like, man, I've let myself go. You start saying and convince yourself that I won't love you. I'm not going to date me. I'm not going to take the time to love me. I'm not going to take the time to date me. I'm good. You start doing things like settling, like procrastinating. You start avoiding you. You start doing all the necessary things that you should be doing anyway. You just don't care. If he treats me bad, oh well. He'll change. He'll change. You know why I know he'll change? Because my mom and dad went through the same thing, and you know, she just stayed in the relationship for us, for the kids, and you know, eventually he changed. Listen. Stop avoiding you. One of the things I tell people is we teach people how we want to be treated. I want you to treat you how you want to be treated. Forget people. You need to start treating you how you want to be treated. Stop denying yourself of being happy because you're trying to please other people. So number 5 is you avoid you. And again, the reason why you avoid you, again, could be something that is a direct link to what happened to you in your past. Last but not least, guys, I'll leave with you is this. Number 6 is difficulty explaining and displaying emotions. I want you to write that down. Difficulty in explaining and displaying emotions. All right. You start saying things like, I'm not that kind of person who has strong feelings about things. This is a problem with men in church, why we don't see enough men crying. I'm not that type. I'm not a crier. I'm not. That's not me. But when God really gets on you, I don't care who you are, bro. You can't help but to cry. You can't help but to shed tears. But we start making excuses about how we really feel emotionally, right? We try to ignore, we try to block, out how we really feel, right? They also become unapologetic. They don't like apologizing. They won't say sorry because they're blocking out their emotions. And one of the things that happens, guys, is that hurt people. And so the way you should feel, you block that out because the trauma is so deep to where you told yourself not to think about it too long, not to focus on it too long, not to focus on getting better, but you focus on just doing you. And so I'm very, very critical of people who says I'm just doing me. Why are you doing you? What led you to start doing you? What happened? What happened to you? Right? You start saying stuff like, I'm not moved by others and how other people feel. If I ask you, do you really care how people feel about you? No, I don't really care. That's their problem. You need to start paying attention to how people are responding to you. One of the things my mother used to say all the time, she used to tell me, she said, gee, if everybody is saying the same things about you, then maybe there's some truth behind that. Which meant that I need to start listening to people who could possibly be telling me the truth. But when you've been so traumatized, you start telling yourself, it ain't me that got a problem, it's you that got a problem. That's your issue, right? Difficulty explaining and displaying emotions. You're emotionally defensive. This is a problem that you have with people who are narcissistic. They have a problem with displaying emotions. They have a problem with explaining how they really feel about a situation. If an argument breaks out, at the end of the day, I guarantee you, it's going to be your fault. It's not going to be their fault. And they could be the main one who caused the situation to happen, but they would never take ownership for it. This is a person that is still dealing with childhood drama. And this is why, guys, we got to deal with this from the beginning. All right? So, those are the steps I wanted you guys to hear, because we need to start identifying these issues. The reason why you keep dating the people that you keep dating, the reason why you keep marrying these types of people is not a coincidence. If you didn't hear nothing I said, hear what I'm telling you. It's not a coincidence why you keep attracting what you keep attracting. It's not a coincidence why this is your third marriage and it hasn't worked out. There's a reason why it hasn't worked out, and it's not because of the other person. It could be because of what has happened to you as a childhood. The reason why you keep attracting dope boys, ladies, because you've been looking for this provider, you've been looking for security. It could be a number of things why you attract these types of individuals, but it's not a coincidence. What I'm telling you tonight is that you got to go back to the beginning. What happened in your elementary life, your middle school life? What happened in high school? What happened in college that led you up to be the woman that you are today? That led up to you being the man that you are today? That led you up to even making decisions as an adult that you are today? Are you an adult that is still dealing with childhood trauma? If you are, I'm talking to you, because we cannot continue relationships, guys, this way. We cannot marry another person until we deal with this issue, and we got to deal with it from the root. Are you sending mixed signals because you're not really healed? You're not really delivered from what happened to you from your past. Are you sending mixed signals? So next week when we come back, we're going to deal with this in part 2. And we're going to deal with the mixed signals as it relates to boyfriend and girlfriend relationships, as it relates to husband and wife relationships. Do you really know what you want? Or are you sending out mixed signals? Do you really want to date, or do you just want to play and sex? Are you sending the wrong signals? And if you are, could this be the reason why you're not happy? Could this be the reason why you keep jumping from relationship to relationships to relationships. I promise you, you don't want to miss part 2 of Mixed Signals. I want you to join me next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Share this video with somebody who needs to hear this. You need to be delivered. You need to be healed from childhood trauma. Listen, let's not ignore it. Some of you guys are over the age of 30. Some of you guys are over the age of 40 and 50. Some of you guys are hitting 60 years old. It's time to deal with this trauma. It's time to deal with the trauma. Because what you don't deal with will automatically come back to deal with you. And some of the stuff that we choose not to deal with, guess what, guys? It's not just affecting you, but it's affecting your own kids. Now your kids are affected because you chose not to deal with this trauma. And so the reasons and the ways that you raise your children is a direct result of how your mother and your father raised you. Who we date, who we marry, is a direct result of what we chose to learn and what we chose not to learn. So tonight, I want you to look into yourself, guys. I want you to figure out what are some of the things that is a direct correlation to how I was raised. What were the behaviors? What were the cycles that I seen as a child that I am repeating in my adulthood? What are the traits? What are the addictions that I seen as a child that I picked up in my adulthood? What are those? I want you to really do some soul searching tonight, and let's change for the better. So join me next week, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be back for another edition of Relationship University. I promise you, you don't want to miss it. Tag, share, and like this video. I gotta go, guys. As I tell you every week, listen, if you can't love the one that you with, don't try to love mine, all right? I gotta go. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.